Hi everyone, this is Trent Thompson with Manitoba Wildlife Federation, and today we'll be sight fishing on some of Manitoba's stock trout waters. And so we'll just start off by breaking down some of the steps and things that you're looking for when getting into sight fishing, and then we'll go through a quick gear breakdown here. So right away, the first thing that we're doing here is we're going to locate the spot on the lake that we'll actually want to be fishing here. So if you can see the background in here behind me, it might be a little bit hard to see right now, but this shoreline here is a majority of a small rock cobble shoreline. And then off to my right hand side here, we do have some bulrushes and pencil reeds, and off to my left there's some more bulrushes off to the side there. So what this essentially signifies for us here is that on our rock bottom we have that a solid rock transition sloping down into the water, and then that's also met on the side here with a little bit more silty or mud bottom, which is then going to create a transition zone. And essentially we're looking for these transition zones when we are fishing for stock trout, as these stock trout species are very active all throughout the winter, and even in general throughout the day they are cruising more often than a lot of other fish species. So having this, your baits hanging in an area that's going to see a lot of fish movements is very beneficial, so that obviously the more fish that come by will increase the opportunity of you catching a big one here. So before we get into the basics of just breaking down the specific spot on top of the spot that we're in here, or finding that spot on the spot, we'll just go through a quick gear breakdown of the essentials that you will require, and then just some things that are nice to have if you are trying to get into sight fishing as well here. So the first piece of essential gear that you'll happen to need for really any type of ice fishing, but for sight fishing especially, is going to be a good auger. If you are planning to not use a ice saw itself, just ensure that the type of auger that you are using can drill overlapping holes and that won't damage your gear. The auger will be used to essentially drill the perimeter of holes, as well as help you locate the spot that you would like to be fishing. So the second piece of gear that we'll end up needing for sight fishing here, this is an optional item. If you are not using an ice saw, you will need to connect every exterior hole on the perimeter of your sight hole, so that you can loosen up that chunk of ice to then either slide under the ice or pull it up out on top of the ice. So the ice saw here, this is a Nils ice saw with a 40-inch blade and a 40-inch handle. This does make it a little bit easier to cut up the chunks of ice into pieces that are a little bit easier to manage and kind of deal with at the end of the day here. So our third item here, this is a pair of ice tongs. So this will really help when we're removing our chunks of ice. This will help with actually pulling out these bigger pieces of ice, since our ice currently is at about 16 inches here. So when using a pair of ice tongs here, essentially you'll just open them up, put that around a piece of ice, and then the upward pressure will essentially use the leverage here to bite into the ice to allow us to pull those chunks out. This will make it a little bit easier to manage those chunks of ice when removing them from the hole. And our last item here that we'll be going over for the essentials to actually get the sight hole prepped and done might look a little bit out of place here in ice season, but this is our standard summer net. I like something with a little finer mesh. This will serve two purposes for sight fishing here. One, it'll be our giant slush scoop, because there will be an excessive amount of slush that we'll want to be pulling out of our sight hole for maximum clarity. It'll also work as a dual purpose, because when you are sight fishing, as you'll see later on here, it is a big hole. So when the fish does come up to the surface, instead of it being caught around in just a little hole, of that 8 or 10-inch hole, it's now in a giant pool. So having this net to actually contain the fish and successfully land fish will really increase your odds of actually landing that fish and putting it topside. So now that we have located our initial spot that we'd like to be fishing on the lake, we're just going to do a little bit of picking apart to find the spot on the spot here. So what that essentially means is, even though we've located a stretch of shoreline that we are looking to actively fish here, we're looking for the specific spot within the shoreline that's going to be the most beneficial to set up a spot on. So right away what we're just going to do here, as I can see back at shore, we do have the bulrushes on ground here with some of those pencil reeds signifying some soft bottom and some hard bottom, as well as our rock shoreline. We're just going to go through this different contour of the shore here, and we're going to start popping holes probably between every 5 to 7 feet. We're going to do something a little bit shallow and a little bit deeper to find our optimal depth range. Today we'll be targeting something probably around the 6-7 foot range for some good film quality here. so that we can get the best viewing experience. So we'll start off just by drilling out the shoreline a little bit here. What we're just going to do is we're going to pick apart a little bit more of this area to find out where those weeds do happen to meet that rock, and that should be our transition area on the spot.
So right now we are using the sonar to check the holes, and what we're looking for is a certain depth range, and we're also looking for a transition area along the bottom. So right here you can see there's quite a bit of interference on the screen, or it's picking up what I'm guessing is a weed bed. So we'll probably try and get in a little bit closer to, or try and find a transition out of that weed bed onto the rocks.
We're clear, and it's about 4 here. So on the flasher here, I can see I'm not getting any soft readings above my water column here, or in my water column. So I can see a hard reading at 4 feet there. That's just going to tell me here most likely we're in a little bit more of a clear area. There's no weeds on the bottom. Compared to if we visit a hole over here, you'll see this is going to fill up with a bunch of readings here, which is essentially going to mean there's softer readings, and that's going to be some weeds there. So for this one, we are getting some more weedy reading here. Again, it is showing our bottom somewhere in and around that 4 feet. And then we do have some feedback here on our flasher, signifying that that extra clutter would happen to be weeds or some vegetation growth on the bottom there. So we've just located our spot on the spot here, or at least the first spot that we'd like to try today. So we are setting up perpendicular from shore here to obtain just a little bit more fishable area and some deeper depths of water. So on our hole that's closest to shore here, that we'll be starting our sight hole with, looks like we're in about 6 feet of water. And then our deeper hole is about 8 feet. So just within here, what we're essentially going to do now is we're just going to drill the grid for our holes. For this steps, if you did not have an ice saw, every hole you drill will need to be overlapping and connecting so that you'll be able to free up that ice chunk. If you do have an ice saw, this is a point in time where we can cut at a rough outline of what we're looking at, and then we can continue our cut lines with the saw itself, then removing the piece of ice from the sight hole itself. So one thing you might happen to see here is as you are sight fishing, it can get a little bit mundane looking down at the same hole, checking out the same scenery while you are waiting for the target trout species to come in. So one thing that can keep you entertained throughout the day is just some of the bycatch species that'll come in. So as you can see down here, we do have just some dace that are being rolling through, just intermittent throughout the day. Especially if we were with new fishermen or with kids, one good thing to do is just size down some of your lure sizes there. So for example, I'll have like a little tungsten rigged up and ready to go, just with a little piece of bait, something like a shrimp here. So you'll see as soon as you've built up like a little school of some of these days, you want to break up the day there, get a little bit of action again. Really good for kids and people new to the sport. Get a little bit of entertainment, play with some fish here. You can actually just drop down that little bit of bait, and whenever you rise and just get those fish's attention, you can kind of activate them. You'll see when they continue on that upward angle towards the bait here, they're engaging with interest. Sometimes you just need to turn them. And just like that, you can catch a little bit of bycatch. Again, really good for kids to keep them entertained throughout the day. So you're not only just looking at fish, but then there's something to break it up and they can actually be successful and catch a bunch of little guys throughout the day as well while you are waiting for that active trout boat to continue there. So again, just a bunch of little dace and perch. They'll be really common in a lot of these trout lakes. You can really break up the day with catching some of those in between fish. So I got a little piece of shrimp on the end. You can actually see that little piece of shrimp just illuminated. So all I'm using is that as an indicator. So as soon as I see that disappear into the dace's mouth there, I'll essentially just set the hook. It's a really good one as well because when you're watching that, I can see that little piece of shrimp is almost like a little piece of fluff. As a visual indicator, I can see when that's being taken in by the fish, and I can give that as a cue to, again, friends who are new to fishing or to a kid, to let them know to set the hook and successfully land that fish here. It might take you a couple tries. Luckily, there's a lot of them in a lot of these stock trout lakes, and they are very engaging when they do come in and they do come to meet a bait. So throughout the day, great way to break things up. Trying to catch the littlest perch right now. One of the nice sides of sight fishing. Good for the kids. Lots of little species there. Oh, I got him. Yeah. It's outside. Oh, I can keep him in the hole. Yeah, boys. Yeah.
Yeah, buddy.
There we go.
Nice one.
So that's the target species. It's a rainbow trout. Nice hatchery fish. So we're just wrapping up an awesome day on the ice here. The last thing to keep in mind regarding ice safety, especially when using sight holes here, is that we're filling in our sight hole, and then as well that we're going to be marking that out with sticks. The biggest importance behind this is for potentially for people who are snowmobiling, as if they do happen to come across and either hit a piece of ice that you've pulled out and left on the ice, or if they hit that sight hole, it could cause a catastrophic injury, which we definitely want to go ahead and avoid here. So what we just end up doing is pushing these blocks of ice in, adding a little bit of slush, and then going ahead here and marking this out with some sticks, some branches, or some deadfall, just to go ahead there and notify people that we have been using this area and that the ice might just be a little bit weaker. And again, a thing of importance when we are going ahead here and marking out these holes, make sure you do have your sticks just in the quadrant of those holes here so that we're marking out where those corners are, as well as where the center of that hole is. Thanks so much for tagging along with us here for sight fishing for stock trout with Manitoba Wildlife Federation. If you enjoyed this stock trout footage, please click here to check out some more awesome stock trout footage on the ripple effect, or click here to check out some more Manitoba Wildlife and our YouTube playlists.